Let's be honest, even if it makes you uncomfortable, a part of you has been tamed like a caged animal. You know it, even if you can't put it into words. You feel like you're missing something. It's not money, success, or love. It's something deeper, something primal, something you've forgotten or learned to ignore. Every time you feel a craving, you channel it into a distraction. You've been taught that this is normal, healthy and human. But what if you've been lied to? What if this energy you burn so quickly vanishes? This is the key to a power we can't even imagine. This isn't cheap spirituality or religious morality, but deep psychology. It's the shadow. It's instinct. It's the message hidden in our impulses. Carl Jung warned us about it decades ago, but almost no one understood. What we don't recognize manifests itself in our lives as our destiny. If we continue to ignore it, it's not freedom, it's emptiness. Look around you and you'll see widespread anxiety, existential boredom, and a lack of meaning. This is no coincidence, but the result of a society that has trivialized sexual energy and reduced it to entertainment. We are taught to express it, not transform it, to disperse it, not transcend it. Yet Jung discovered something radical. This energy is not a whim of the body. It is the fuel of the soul. Those who repress it out of fear become ill. Those who waste it unconsciously become drained. But when we learn to harness and redirect it, we awaken something fiery. What the ancients called an inner fire, what the modern world. You're afraid because you can't control it. And you know what's most disturbing. Have you ever felt like that? Those moments when, even by accident, you've gone days or weeks without sex, and suddenly something changes. Your vision sharpens, your voice steadies, your decisions become clearer. You wake up with a power you didn't know you possessed, but whose connection you hadn't perceived. You thought it was a coincidence, but it wasn't. It was your primal force being activated. Your libido was being redirected. And that's exactly what Jung explained with brutal precision: sexual energy. It is eliminated, transformed, and what you do with it determines who you become. Have you ever wondered why moments of peak creativity, intuition, and personal strength coincide with periods of abstinence? It's not magic, it's pure psychodynamics. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey toward who you truly are, and this journey requires sacrifice. It requires looking within, confronting desire, and not blindly obeying it, for therein lies your shadow. What you can deny, repress, and paradoxically, release. But beware, this truth is unpleasant, because it forces you to realize that you have spoiled your most sacred self every time. You have given in to the need for immediate gratification. You have given up on yourself, your potential, your power. Do you know what happens when you can't control your urges? Someone else will. Jung knew this. The man who doesn't control his libido is controlled by it. And the one who is controlled by it is a slave to the world. We live in a culture that wants neither men nor women of power. Consumers, and a consumer doesn't think he reacts. This is why you are bombarded with sexual stimuli every second. Because as long as you are distracted by immediate pleasure, you are not looking within yourself. You are not questioning your reality. You are not awakening. But what if you choose to resist and refuse to follow the script you have been given? And what if you decide to channel that energy into something greater? What Jung proposes is not abstinence as punishment, but rather transmutation into liberation. It is about aligning your eos with your purpose. It is about transforming carnal desire into drive. Creativity is about going from being the victim of your passions to the architect of your destiny. And this, my friend, is not a theory, but a brutal practice. It is an inner alchemy, a psychic rebellion not against sex, but against its trivialization, against the idea that we cannot live without it. Become aware of your dependence. When you become a slave to your desires, everything else becomes secondary. But when you learn to harness that energy, you become someone this world can no longer control. This is the truth I wanted to share with you today, a truth that it's uncomfortable but liberating. Jung wasn't for the complacent. He was for those ready to grow within, to examine their demons, tame them, and transform them into strength. For there is no greater power than that of one who is no longer a victim of oneself. Prepare yourself, because what follows is not a pleasant message. It's a shock, a call, a break with everything you thought you knew about desire, sex, and yourself. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you won't be found in any self-help book, or the empty talk about self-development that floods the internet. Jung wasn't just talking about abstinence in the physical sense. He was talking about the psychological process of sublimation. This means transforming the original impulse into something that nourishes a higher consciousness. But this isn't mysticism. It's deep psychology. This same energy that drives us toward easy pleasure, if we don't abandon it, if we don't release it, we seek other forms of expression. And that's where it gets interesting. This energy seeks art. Creation seeks direction. It cannot be extinguished or shut down. It can only be guided. And therein lies the essential question: where should we direct our energy? For if we do not redirect it, it consumes us from within. It transforms into fear, frustration, and compulsions. Jung explained this with brutal clarity. What is repressed does not disappear. It distorts. The shadow that is not confronted becomes destiny, certainly, but also illness. Desire denied without understanding becomes self-sabotage. So it is not a matter of repressing desire. Sexuality is perceived as something dirty, but understood as a symbolic language. Behind every impulse hides a message from the subconscious. It does not seek sex, but expansion, fullness. It seeks to integrate the forgotten parts by following the imposed rules. This is where the archetype of the inner warrior comes into play. Jung spoke of the need to confront the inner dragon, that part of oneself that seeks immediate gratification, that demands pleasure without commitment, that escapes the void through artificial stimuli. This dragon cannot be killed. It can be tamed. When you learn to resist the urge to give in to your body's every cry, you know what happens when you hold back, when you choose not to react. As always, a threshold opens, something shifts. The energy that threatened to extinguish, in a brief moment of ecstasy, begins to flow through your thoughts, transforming into clarity, direction, instinct, and, above all, will. This is the real problem. You have lost your will, not through weakness, but through overstimulation. Every time you give in, you train your mind to obey, not to resist, and every act of obedience to immediate desire is a leap of faith into the void. They want to know why you can't focus, why you procrastinate, why you feel disconnected, why you've continued to give your best until you no longer feel whole, why every unconscious impulse undermines your integrity. Now observe the pattern. What do those who have transcended the ordinary do? Monks, warriors, artists, visionary leaders, all have gone through a period of profound abstinence, not necessarily sexual but energetic. They learned to close doors to open portals. They understood that desire is a compass, but it should never be its captain. They knew the awkward silence that comes from refusing to give into impulses and surviving them. And you, how many times have you crossed that threshold? How many times have you faced desire without giving in? For therein lies the truth that no one wants to admit. Moderation is not repression, but strategy, preparation. It means controlling the fire without extinguishing it. It means understanding that every repressed impulse is available energy. Jung made it clear you can sublimate your libido. You can change the world. You realize what that means. It means that every time you decide not to fall, you accumulate a force that the system cannot calculate, because the system requires you to be weak, predictable, who always reacts in the same way. The one who holds back becomes unpredictable, and the unpredictable is the only thing that is truly free. But now let me take you further. Have you heard of anima? And animas are the internal representations of the feminine and masculine principles that each of us we contribute to Jung, who taught that as long as one does not integrate one's anima, if one is a man, or one's animus, if one is a woman, one seeks outside what one has not understood inside. And we know how this lack of integration manifests itself in sexual obsession, uncontrolled attraction, emotional dependence, and the constant search for what we lack, when we lack nothing. In reality, we have not learned to communicate with our subconscious. We seek in our body what we only find within ourselves. This does not sound brutal. Desire is nothing other than a desperate attempt by the soul to recover. And this is where abstinence becomes revolutionary. Not for moral reasons, but for self-knowledge. Because by stopping this external cycle, you begin to listen, to see, to interpret. And you discover that your desire was not for another body, but for your other inner half, that you were not yearning for physical contact, but for psychic union, that your libido was not for pleasure, but for the awakening that changes everything. So it is not about becoming a martyr. It is not about denying your humanity. It is about reconquering it. Protect your energy as if it were gold, because it is. Every time you hold it back, you are cultivating something sacred. You are building an inner temple, a place that no one can harm, manipulate, or take away. You are giving your soul the space it needs to emerge. And when that happens, no earthly power can stop you, because you are no longer dependent, no longer searching, no longer pursuing. You are moving forward with purpose, with a clear gaze and a burning heart. Believe me, it shines through. It is palpable, and that is where the truth begins. Power, not the kind that shows itself, not the kind that shouts, the kind that is contained in silence, in the invisible strength of someone who has chosen not to give in to simple pleasure because they have traded it for something infinitely more precious to themselves. And now that you have come this far, tell me, do you still think it is only about sex? Do you still think it is about giving up something physical? That it is about nothing else? That it is about the power of personal sovereignty, of taking back the reins that you have unconsciously relinquished? For here is the secret that very few are ready to know. Accepting your body is only the surface, but your energy is sacred territory, and every time you choose not to react like a conditioned animal, you write a new story. You break with centuries of automatism. You renounce being part of the pack that does not think, that only consumes, that survives without understanding why. But it is not easy, because the path of self-mastery is lonely, because no one applauds your abstinence, no one celebrates your silence, no one recognizes the power you cultivate until it manifests, and when it manifests, it's too late for them, because you've already become something else. You're no longer the same. Your gaze changes. Your presence becomes heavy, magnetic, unfathomable. You don't need to say much or justify yourself, because your energy speaks for you, and it's infallible, because it comes from within, because it's forged in the fire, contained in desire, redirected to the integrated shadow. You don't need to say it. You don't need to prove it. The world perceives it and doesn't know what it is, but it feels it, and when that happens, you can't go back because you've proven it. What does it mean to live without chains? You've seen what it's like to depend on nothing and no one to feel complete. You've known the most addictive freedom, the freedom of having no needs. And then you understand that what was sold to you as freedom was a disguised prison, a cage full of pleasures, a prison with open doors but invisible bars, those of need, of impulse, of lack. And you know what happens when you break that dependence. You see everything with different eyes. The superficial no longer blinds you. Urgency no longer dominates you, but desire ceases to be master and becomes servant. You decide when to act. You decide whom to surrender to. You decide what energy is worth using. And this level of consciousness is a form of enlightenment, not that of a mystic, not that of a saint, but that of a perfect human being, totally in control of themselves. And it is the rarest thing in the world. So I leave you with a question that only you can answer. Will you continue to empty yourself of yourself with impulses you do not understand? Or will you begin to fill yourself with yourself? For it is precisely in this decision that the difference between a life lived and a life dragged, between a soul that burns and one that goes out without ever having shone, and if you have come this far, it is no coincidence that you are one of the few who want to listen to this, one of those who can still light their fire. So do it. Don't let it stay in words. Let it become practical. Allow yourself to feel it in every decision, in every moment in which you can choose between the easy and the powerful, between the immediate and the eternal. And if this message has moved something in you, you've touched a nerve that no one has dared to touch. Sign up, but don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. Because we're not here to entertain. We're here to awaken. And if you want more, if you want to go deeper where no one dares, you've come to the right place. Leave me a quote in the comments, just one that says it all without explaining anything. Fire doesn't go out, it transforms. That's how I know you're one of those who are no longer satisfied, one of those who are ready to harness their own energy. And now, yes, I say goodbye, but not like at the beginning. I say goodbye with an echo that will haunt you. The next time desire calls you, don't answer immediately. See it, listen to it, and ask yourself, does it drain me or strengthen me? Because this question, even if it may seem trivial, can change your destiny. We'll meet again at the next level, or not, it's up to you.